the House of Lords is due to consider Part 3 of the Victims and Prisoners Bills, which has some important clauses which relate to the scandal involving infected blood. Now, Baroness Brinton has tabled an amendment to the clause which would see interim payments of £100,000 made to bereaved parents and children. Now, as things stand, if an infected person was not in a relationship when they died, no one in their bereaved family can claim any interim compensation. Now, you'll remember a few weeks ago, we looked at a lot of scandals off the back of the post office scandal, and the infected blood scandal was a really, really big issue, which was, people were really shocked about this. And I'm delighted that the Liberal Democrat peer, Sal Brinton, Baroness Brinton, joins us now. Sal, welcome to the show. Thanks very much for joining us.
Thanks. Good afternoon.
So just tell us about this amendment and what difference it would make and why is it important?
Well, the amendment follows Diana Johnson's amendment in the Commons before Christmas, when she managed to persuade the House of Commons to vote for a basic one about interim compensation and moving very swiftly to making sure that all the victims and their families get dealt with quickly. But there was another amendment which wasn't discussed, which was about those members of the family who may be bereaved, but at the moment it's not clear whether or not they should get the compensation due to them from their loved one dying. And that's what my amendment does. I didn't write it. It comes straight from Sir Brian Langstaff's interim report. He's holding the public inquiry into contaminated blood. And he was very, very keen when he published the interim report in April that by Christmas of last year, these interim payments should have been made. One of the reasons I've laid the amendment is partly to clarify for family members where they stand, but also to make sure the government really does move ahead swiftly. They are now well beyond the time that Sir Brian had actually set for things to happen. And my worry is that they're going to delay it even further.
Well, I was just going to come to that point because there was a story in last week's Sunday Times making an accusation that the Post Office had been dragging their feet over paying compensation. Do you think the same thing's happening here?
Well, this one, I'm afraid, has decades and decades of delay and dither, and reading some of the evidence from officials and from former ministers over the last 40 years who have been involved in this infected blood scandal, it's clear that it's taken far too long to get anybody to actually listen to what's really happening with the victims. Many, many, many have died. Others are still living with the illnesses that they were given when they were infected, most of which the infections stopped happening in the early 90s. So we're talking already about nearly 50 years for some, but at the very least 30 years. And we haven't got anywhere yet. It's an absolute outrage.
And final question to you, Sal. The ITV drama department, which now seems to be the sort of moral conscience of the land, has announced that they are going to do a drama on this contaminated blood scandal following the Post Office, very important Post Office show that they made. Do you think this will be helpful? Do you think this will be a significant development? I mean, it's a shame it takes an ITV drama to get things moving.
I first met some of the boys with haemophilia at Lord Mayor Trelaw's school in the mid-1970s. And most of them were infected and many are dead. And the stories that they and their families have been telling to anyone who would listen over the last 30, 40 years is an absolute disgrace to our government, the NHS, and frankly to our country. So if another drama can help shine a light on this, I can only applaud it. This really is a national scandal and it needs to be dealt with immediately.
Baroness Brinton, thank you so much for your time. Thanks for joining us. That's the Liberal Democrat peer, Sal Brinton, there talking about the contaminated blood scandal.